of the things I noticed is that 2 out of his 3 wives to date on the series have come forward and said, I don't feel comfortable with your relationship with Robin. And in both instances, the one with Christine coming forward saying she doesn't feel comfortable. And now in this particular episode, Meri came forward and said, I don't feel comfortable with your relationship with Robin. And in both instances, Kody just dismissed it as, oh, that's your problem. Too bad, so sad. I feel great about it. And that's all that needs to happen. And by doing that, he's isolating them. And this is part of the reason, again, why his polygamy doesn't work within the Brown family. And it's because, like I said before, polygamy as a concept would be a very, very difficult, trick to master. There's too many balls in the air. Like, to be honest, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. Because I think that, looking at my schedule and the time that I have just on dealing with the time issue, I don't think I could give the people the necessary, and this is, forget the kids, if there are no kids involved. If I had 2 and 3 wives, I don't think I would be able to give them the time that they're deserving of, the time that's required. If they would feel like, as with most of these sister wife situations that I've seen on the television shows and in different places where I've looked, there's always a point where the wives see their time with their husband as a cherished time, so they don't communicate their problems. They don't talk about issues because they don't want to waste the one night that they have with them on, little Bobby had problems at school, or Mariah had difficulties and wasn't doing her homework. They don't want to waste their time with their husband because they won't see him for another week. And if they have a problem, because as a married people and people in relationships know, when you're with somebody, you will have arguments that will span longer than an hour or a half-hour sitcom time frame. You could have an argument or disagreement that could go a couple days. How do you have a disagreement with a sister wife that goes a couple days? Because that argument that would go a couple days technically would last a few weeks, and you might be creeping into months before argument or disagreement is resolved. And that just creates more problems all the way through. Now, there is a point where people look at Robin and her situation and say she's the reason why the sister wives situation has fallen apart, and she's the reason why they're not getting along. She's very manipulative, she's tricky, and she ruined everything. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think Kody had a huge hand in destroying his relationship. In fact, I would even go as far as to say, without Robin being present, Kody probably would have figured a way to destroy these relationships on his own. Especially if he was able to get an influx of money and he was able to get a little bit of fame and popularity through the TV show. Like, if it was just sister wives with the 3 wives and Kody, he probably still would have messed this damn thing up, because that's who he is. You are who you are, and you're going to be who you are when you get there. So there is a point where you can see Kody's manipulation tactics, because when Meri presents an issue that she's having trouble dealing with the addition of Robin to the family, she presents it as, hey, I'm having issues with Robin coming into the family. I feel neglected. I feel like we're having trouble in our relationship. We're in a bad place. Right now, between me and you, Kody and Meri, we're in a bad place. And later on, we find Kody asking, oh, well, what do you think about us having a baby? Now, much like having a baby would be for monogamous relationships, I'm sure for polygamists, adding a wife or adding anybody else to a relationship that's already in distress is only going to further decay that relationship. That's the worst possible thing you can do. If you're having trouble with your husband or your wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the mixed bag of nuts is, if you're having trouble, you adding a baby, another person, a cat, dog, fish, whatever, to that relationship is only going to put a further burden on a relationship that's already stressed out. And you will wind up snapping that relationship in half. You will break your relationship. And so by them adding Robin to the situation is only going to damage the relationship. But Kody, he hears this and he hears this criticism. And immediately, Kody, you can see Kody go into defensive mode. Because if he doesn't go into defensive mode, he may have to take responsibility and accountability for his part in Meri'S feelings and how she feels and the possible degradation and destruction of his relationship. So Meri gives the example or the hypothetical of, well, what if I had another man and I was spending time with him? Kody's response to that was, I would find that unnaturally and disgusting and an abomination to nature, right? The fact that you would have another man, another lover, or another husband, I couldn't even imagine how that would be, because I don't even want to think about it. It's so disgusting. Ironically, when he talks about that, the whole purpose and reason why they were supposedly doing the show was because they wanted to expose polygamy to the rest of the world, the mainstream world, so that we could see that polygamy wasn't this nasty, disgusting, dirty thing. The problem he has is that most of the people who watch this show see polygamy the exact same way Kody does. You guys actually agree with each other. Isn't that something? Because they see the fact that you have multiple wives and you have multiple kids all spread out through all these women, and you're supposed to be spending time with them, and you're trying to add another person, and you don't have enough time that you can actually take care of the people you're supposed to be taking care of. They find that unnatural and disgusting, Kody. Isn't that something? So you guys agree on something. I like bringing people together. Now, one of the things I addressed earlier when I was talking about manipulation and dealing with narcissists is that narcissists like to, having conversations with narcissists and trying to explain to them your feelings and where you're coming from so that they can see your perspective is a Sisyphean effort. It's a failed effort. It's a waste of time, because they're not listening to understand where you're coming from or understand your pain or understand your issues. They're listening because they're trying to find keywords and tools so they can spin it back around onto you and how it affects them and how they can get their point across. Because even as Kody said, I can't win here. I can't win having this conversation, because to them, it's an adversarial conversation. The moment you start criticizing them or you cite something that they may be doing wrong, it automatically becomes an adversarial me versus you situation. And when it's me versus you, there's going to be a winner and a loser. I'm not a loser. I'm going to be the winner and you're going to lose. And that's how they address it. So everything becomes strategic at that point, which means that as soon as she started talking about that, she threw in the word jealousy. He latched onto the word jealousy and he started talking about, well, you're jealous. And jealousy as a word, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, because I think you should embrace all your emotions. There's a reason why you're jealous, and it's instinctually, you feel like you're not being treated fair. There may be a root to it. It can be destructive and it can be damaging, but there's a root to it. And instead of Kody exploring any of that, he used it as a loaded word. He started talking about how she was jealous and how, jealousy can ruin everything, and it starts to infect the relationships and destroy the relationship, knowing that it's a loaded word. And the one thing that he never said or addressed was, why do you feel jealous? Because if he started talking about why she feels jealous because he's spending so much time and giving so much attention to Robin and not to the rest of the family. That's why she's jealous. And if he talked about it from that angle, then he would have to take responsibility. So he wanted to ignore that, and then he switched it around by using the word jealousy as a loaded term against her. Then he started talking about her inconsistency. See, because this is part of it, because by him saying, oh, you felt jealous, and this is something that you're going through. Then all of a sudden he says, that puts her on her heels. Then he says, well, you are being inconsistent, because at first you were excited. You were so excited about our relationship in the beginning. And then now you're coming back to me, and I'm a little confused and dismayed by the fact that you're coming back and saying that you don't like the relationship, when in fact you're the person who introduced us in the first place. So all this theoretically is now, as he spins it slowly around and refocuses it, it's now Meri'S fault. You're the one who's jealous. Your feelings, your problem. I'm not the one making you jealous. You're making you jealous. You need to fix you. In fact, what are you jealous of me about? If it's my fault, you're the one that brought her in a relationship. I didn't even want her, right? And that's one of the things that he did. This is just classic manipulation. And all of a sudden, Meri's sitting there on her heels trying to figure out what's going on. And then he hits her with this. He hits her with what I like to call, because later on, there was a point where Christine in Arizona on season 16, they were on the mountain on Coyote Pass, and they were having a conversation, and they were talking about moving back to Utah, and Kody shoots it down out of pocket after he gets her all hyped up about possibly moving back to Utah, and then he pretends like he don't know what she talking about, and shoots her down, and Christine gets upset and walks off and says, I can't do this anymore. I can't be married to Kody no more. And she says it to Meri, and Meri says, look at the mountains, just look at the mountains, right? And to me, this is the look at the mountain moment, because the moment he starts to turn that whole situation around on her and refocuses it, then all of a sudden he says, well, tell me why you're in a relationship. That has nothing to do with the issue and nothing to do with the problem. That's not the problem, why I'm here. The problem is I'm in trouble now and I'm having difficulties now. Let's talk about that. Let's get into the real conversation on why I feel the way I feel and what you can do to help me get past how I feel. But now all of a sudden it's, well, why are you in a relationship? Because now you're giving yourself reasons as to why you want to stay in a relationship. And like I said, I mean, that's just point blank manipulation. Because he, one, turned the situation back on her, took her issue, turned it back on her. Then he gave reasons as to why the situation as it laid was her fault. Then he wanted her to supply him the reasons, him and herself, the reasons as to why she got into the relationship in the first place and why the relationship was important to her. And this is how he manipulated her. Above all, this is where I say Kody wasn't having a conversation with her to get information from her or to relay ideas or exchange ideas so that they can have a meeting of the minds. Kody had a conversation with her because he wanted to inform her what she was going to do and how she was going to do it. He doesn't talk to her as though she's a participant in the relationship. She's fully vested and she's a partner in the relationship. He talks to his wives and he talks to his kids as though they're spectators. I make decisions for me and the family, and you guys just go along with it because I know what's best for everybody. And that in and of itself is a classic way that you can easily destroy your relationships because you're tearing down the people you're in a relationship with. And here's just a piece of an aside that I have for me. If you are a full-grown man, you're a full-grown woman, why wouldn't you want to be in a relationship with somebody who is also full-grown? Why would you want to be in a relationship with somebody who you have to tell and explain things to? You have somebody who doesn't have their own thoughts in their mind, somebody who is essentially a weak person. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to live forever. And I know that. I understand my mortality. I understand that the clock is ticking. And so if I go first, what is the person that I'm in love with or the person I deal with? How are they going to deal with me being gone? If they can't deal with life as it is and they need somebody to come along and tell them what to do, they need me to tell them what to do. How are they going to survive? And more importantly, if these are the partners that you've chosen and you have children with them, how are you going to leave this person to be responsible for your children? That never has made sense to me. Why you would want somebody who you think is less than you. Why you want to deal with somebody who you don't respect and somebody who you hold in high esteem and high regard. Why would you want to have that responsibility on your shoulders? That's my take. I'm James. This has been my take on reality, and I'm out. 'Cause I've been living life right like I